and fantastic neighborhood, EJ Investments Sandeng Seaview Estate is the best choice you have been waiting for. Our Sandeng Seaview Estate is approximately 15 minutes drive away from the busy hub of Brusubi roundabout and into the heart of nature, where you can have a peaceful and relaxed lifestyle with your family. You can buy a finished 4-bedroom story with 5-year flexible payment plan or a service plot with 2-year payment plan option. With over 300 homes, you will enjoy big tar roads with covered drainage, modern electrification with solar street lights, gated entrance with security post, and a breath-catching experience of our beautiful sea view and lake view. You can own a home today at our Sandeng Seaview Estate. Call us today on 446-4838 or 325-9220. Visit our website on ejinvestments.net. EJ Investments, first in property.
Good evening, everyone. Greetings to our party leader and Secretary General of the United Democratic Party, and Honorable Lawyer Usainu Dabo. Greetings to his deputy, Ajaratu Yamseka. Also, we welcome today's guest speaker, a man who needs no introduction, a man I personally have huge respect for his commitment and dedication to our democracy. Madi Jabate, you're welcome. Members of the high table, you're welcome. Good evening to the Honorable Lord Mayoress of Banjul, you're welcome. To the Majority Leader of the House, Honorable KKB Barrow, you're welcome. Greetings to the members of the Solo Sandeng family here present. To the other victims here present, I can see Auntie Jukuna right in front of me, Uncle Falan Sonko, and all the other victims who are here present. To you we owe this day to you we owe this democracy we are enjoying today, as your sacrifice we are enjoying today. We are here to commemorate the lives of the gallant men who went out and paid the ultimate sacrifice for us to gain our liberty. The theme of today's memorial lecture is called Upholding the Gains of Our Democracy. I can remember last year, the guest speaker was Dr. Emmanuel Daniel Diouf. Today he is the one heading the Human Rights Commission. And last year he delivered a great lecture. And I remember saying that we shouldn't be nonchalant in this newfound democracy, because we wouldn't know what would happen next year or the following year. And I think we can see what is happening now, which gives us more reason to continue this fight that these men started, to continue sacrificing so that we can mold this newfound democracy to last forever and ever in this country. Just a few words as we celebrate the life of Mr. Sandeng and the Langmarongs and the Femi Peters and all the other people that have paid the ultimate price in order for us to enjoy our liberty. In regards to Mr. Sandeng is a family friend of ours. He's like an uncle to me. And I've known him, I can say, all my life. And I can attest to his commitment, not only to the country in general, but it started with his family. He was a dedicated father and a dedicated member of his community. He was an active member of the Dipakunda community, and everyone mourns this loss. As I stand here today, anytime I speak about him, I get emotional because I know that when he went out that April 14th, he knew what he was going to meet. I think Solo already prepared his mind to die, because I think at that point we all know the risk of going out to protest at that time, at that moment in time. And I think he decided in his heart that he was going to do, it was worth this sacrifice for him to lose his life in order for us to enjoy our freedom. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward him for this sacrifice for his country. Amen. I would like to call upon Uncle Falang Sonko to make a statement on behalf of all the victims that went out on April 14. Uncle Falang is here, so you're welcome, Mr. Sonko.
Assalamu alaikum. Hello.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Bismillah mina shaitan rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Ngamira janta munekela folo nga dua folo tala bile fo ala sila jama sono yama nga allahumma salota nga dua ye folo ndamana dum kacha kono subla mina shaitan rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala sayyidina Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala sayyidina Muhammad. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala sayyidina wa nabiyyina wa maulana Muhammad wa sallam taslima. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta alaihim ghayril maghdubi alaihim waladdallin. Amin. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. اللهم اغفر لجميع اموات المسلمين اللهم اغفر لهم وارحمهم برحمتك يا ارحم الراحمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم اغفر لهم وارحمهم السلام عليكم ورحمه الله تعالى وبركاته bi ketal lunnati me yalon ko ala yalon aketante bulu lumbalati bawo di late Ibrahima Solo Sandeng nsafo no bi tonya politiko len kaf bari labawa kamunta kon telna bota bakilin fakili katun nin solo le close ta katambi ibin nimmen wuluda mo mawoke naman ke politiko ti anin Gambia kano bawo hakilo bakan asiyata sanji tantin ka ko solo ko solo na ko nyona kay allahumma salatan tonni ya jamme talala nga remember lum kilim bita bur iko mollel bota APRC nata UDP iko ngata bur fud ni kacha mbe silo kambita anko kay solo ko nyona kay allahumma salatan tonni ya jamme talala ko nyoto ngase nka solo ngase ko ha ya nka mo nekata ko mol bita meeting ola ko mol sawnta mi dayta ka ko allahumma salatu nasala la to ngase nka ko hani benyi men na nyanta ko la bar allahumma salatu natala ala ya ke lum kile nabe haji dole kunna de nyanta talaji ayen ko la ko je fala be min to nka fele mi garaso ta ko je he yemen fo wolen to nyata nka je ibrahima mu nekata ako je allahumma salatu ni ya jami tala nka kabra nata ay silo danteñi wo suuto fawon sonta ndun ta nyanta fala menu ye nga foye asamon data birkam nga mitimo ke wol wolun nem ay mobile ol san 10 ay sim card ol san africell sim card 10 akonyo ko fala ni ala sonta dol be be ñene use la nkanna na line ol use card ni usenu ya kala mutata son ngana laynol be fade wonde ngana sim card Africell sim card keje nga mobile ko tolta kabring April 14 somanda wulta ala be CDR ngala nadin labaw nga sikale fo santo nga sumbu because nga nyine miranu ko alkiyama le nabe nyoje la bari nata nyoje la dunia wolunga keta bala fa dum bat nata solo la suwo kono nga solo jibe nata bambu kabri nga kunya jibabe nyabe nka Ibrahima ko nyina solo ko nyina nka ko yamiran te nyim bayla fo dum ko temba ayen jibe ndra kam fat nka okay ngata kabri tata biroto fana nka chata kabri nga kachaki ful la kurata nata ko tenge nka Ibrahima ko nyina nka ko yamiran te nyim dum bayla ba akonye falam kay nam akonye nan laftal fanal te solo fanal laftal fanal ko Allahu akbar ni wato sita fere bu kataraji kabrin tata be demonstration la solo be lorin dame kabrin sane na anim piko bole na tay nin civil no ko be solo arrest flago be men bulu bana ni ya fayle itata ngul tanga bana ni muto olat na ni tata freedom ikana pichole jeje nga bana muto iko solo bitalen ko solo titadrat e lafta monela nga solo bule bulu na tay ko sula ta solo la solo na ngata to je janjam ko no monat na be solo to la jan al nabi ta to be janjam hani abita dawda be le bitaji bari solo da matita ni yo nyo saba mo be nata chocho siata solo be lori ndabe kabri yaje ko toñale to te solo samba non o wato le to be janjata yara fe tate lota ibe solo damale crossika animo mbeje faame tangam nguli tangam ko ma fele ngaje ka fo mo katarango alhamdulillah mbeje to finata en kaba kun ko muta ko je falan kay nam ayen sab kay je mun kita ko je bojam kay hani to kay ko okay mbina atata lota faame ta ko ten kanata en kaba muta ko je falan kay nam akonye ko ye bojam ngamol jibe ngaje kafo katala hani kam ngai hani ko tofia kay ko nam kay ko no problem bina la data bari wotumo sondo mo ko no ngamenji je bari ate keno la froyati je nte ka fo bom mota ngali neba femman du fo saya ko ka borwon saya dum te bay o ya ni solo fata dawdam fata nyanta fana won dum definitely wala nyanta ken ala ya ke kabrim paral nata ye melnu taraji ko chocho may sia fa ye bele mota ka to wotumo jamale borta botan ko no itata bar kabrim paral nata yenne solo muto ya te dundi piko bole kono fay man son nay bula moto kile ye solo sande modou ngom nogoy njaay ibrahima diaba anin kafu bayo yenyi modou lolel kabrim futata je yenyi modou lolel bondin kono yol samba NIA direct yen tolu samba mile to central prison kabrim beje fo around 12 o'clock ngamo be bundal konkon yentol be sika wala nyama killing yembula di pikobol kono sutu ikan handcuff le yembula pikobol kono beta ta mile jana NIA headquarter kabrim futata NIA to nyala be ko summarize la ti jam fanola bari mune bala fana ta wara kabri yen sindi dame yen na statement wol beta fourth statement wol be banta wala natan sita banta be kacale be mol killing sambaka ngalo ndi baroda may kata wala kidi be sirin dabe nin do be kacala ko munat na to le nyinke kay wel na ko ci sona right le e be na ko ci sono violate kan ngaaji ko amam correct dum fo nga finti nga nani ko yakitan ngambe démocratie le ko no dum amanke ku kutati dunya be ka wala ka munat na gambe ta keno ako ko okay e balo na le kay ko yes ako nyi malon falan dol ka so jarol li bajanne fonke fanke bade kay ko yes al sin le no le falim fa baral ta fulan janat ako je kawol fon kay ha ako je murat de kon ta fulan janat kay ton mu politique non ton manke so jar ndol mu politique non nal yemma dunya bele be ko kalam tal ndugal ta fulan janat ko je kawol fon kay ha ko je okay ntele keta mo la bawti yemen saba pour kataliba kabrim bitay ka fonye ko e ba londal e ka fonye flag bi are ba londal ko yo ko Allah akbar ka fonye Allah akbar jam ha bi ba londal ko yo bari alhamdulillah li paro di mita nyawonya ye même mirano ala ma okay et la boss même fa ka fonye ba londal wol fa lo te kunta ko ya labul alba fala alhamdulillah e wo be keta nyawonya na tan samba bum ko no be interview la ha to nya pisalo keta bari no o wato hanni yemdi mbale lanka yemmalanta kala mutala ko ten katu wotumo dunya kuma ndiyanye ko ten fonga saya lumo man nyanda kala balulundi ntole wala saya lumo o man nyanda kala balulundi katu foro ni lahido siti o lahido muta bar gambian ko lu lafta ko kilinda mala fala gambia be nimme yemira me yesolo sande samba alkia gambia ani UDP kado woto sani wala nan kafo mole ko billahi wallahi tallahi momo ko be UDP farala fulata te wati ngadi ali lo soto me nan kafo bu kafo 15 woto UDP dingolu alinga UDP mutu ala yalo nte buka lamo kan 15 ndum mantra mo jay la 15 ama possible bawo nte la balo mentu tan na balo to sali maje mune be jar la nya fan ya fola o kuma fola fo nte na manan kuma fola fo nga fa wala fisiata ni amoy mansa ya kanole ni amoy musilme ya kanole nin kamote jedro musilme ya la jurta hadama ya la jurta woton tete kam fola fola kankilin kawla e gambian ko UDP ko alinga mira solo sande nin solo ya moy ko fala man UDP la interest protect wallahi alkiyama nabe kitila amam possible ma fo yoro ma fo bate bar UDP la interest wallahi be fala wala bal katu ni ole jolonta pour UDP e badu ni ole jolonta pour UDP e toaja yemira la maro yemira femi pital yemira ibrahima janko sisel ana nyondo mennu be niyotuda pour UDP gambian ko do alin tol tewol mira la ba mune be jarlanye mbe sonna UDP fly sot mune nyanta jarla o nyaw fe masi bawo fe mo siyata nyaw nyambar mo le kan yo soto fe mbuka ni kuma kanu du ñun be niyo bota mune kama UDP kanu alin gambia kanu woto gambian ko alin gambira UDP la alin gambira gambia ni aje ni mobe ñoo sabala ka ñoo sabada ma me nadro wala gambia la sam bari kum kilina na sam tenu solo ni yotta tulaji ama possible bawo nin kun kilina bota jumale nafa bari tol kole ko gambia e ko ndu never again alin kana fiya never again alin kana fiya fara ko fondin kewl anin na yaay kompinol anin UDP la chairmanol alal hakil to bal kanet bawo dunya tonya mbe ka fengo ni mbe lafta fenela bari wallahi ye fengo soto bunya ni hormoto je o fengo fam men nafa soto aban nafa soto abada nte alo ne de hannim fata bi alhamdulillah rabbil alamin mota fulako foroya o palaso le fala na palaso e fala na to di matinya hani mennu fana niyo bota hanni ni beta alkiyamante mallaka to ngalo ne niyo bota menna mfana be singo do wala kan fo janni be taral no woto sayate bayla alim be sinyimira dunia ni aje hani ka bi nin ko ngali momo konto mo sonko te hani karfa ka konta ngali ya bendo ko wala bar ni ngali ya ku jaw baranu ite laf la fang konto e ke sonko bar bi hani men ni ngali man bo bosum kili ni ko sonko ibe ka fele mbota ngali neba woto dunia mo wodi mo kane la foroya san dunia fewo ka ban bari la foroya ani la ke kende ya yemenke wallahi wo bukaba hani mumuringol isi wo tariko senka ndibe kontalla woto alinga jibe alinga gambia jibe e bin sewo tabak bi munni ku ya dungolte ala yalo ninga ibrahima soro sandemba dimbalde e akajam fambalo balaba bawo ngajele ni faabe nyaabe du nienje e kanyine mota ko nyaabe faaleka woto bi alhamdulillah ntele fota tero la bari safo no tol man fo faala kato han kabi tol nyaabe te kan bari terum buka soloje ko tengi dolo ninga mira solo la ko la ala yala balaka abala fa ka wa kabrim yembe samba piayu mbe sirinde wallahi be semberin tella be jinkola na la ñol jebal mo keta wonti e abala fa warta ba abe semberin balo bala jaabe ndamala do ngamune filning ala tem wala na kabriyen di pawo suto na tan na selo ko nko e solo sandem fa nalo nko e solo sandem fa fano keta around 5 o'clock jete nata akonye ko fana nkai ko na akonye solo is sentenced to death nkai hana fale is beaten to death akonye ko yes is beaten to death ye wala iko usenu nyol finti tabante be mama wala nkai ko ngalo de ko ba fana ngawno bawo ngalo ne mte fawo ye menken tela woto solo sande ngalo ne wote badu definitely katu ko le nu mte fala sonko solo sande lamaro iko nin tol dunta NIA iko je su ngeen dof lo be duga NIA du ngeen fi génnaat nu murtaje bari ala men lañu ni wala ketam solo mam tutajele la men marom fana amawati e alhamdulillah to be niolal folo mam fa folo woto al salon ko ala men lañu ni wala kake amen men lañu ni wo bukake bari nak jomo situ ko alal wallahi misil modu ali ngantu ko alal nte bukanyi ne understand ka kembulu ni ku ya ku bat misil moy ko mu misil mol di yeta fo ye sanji tandulu balu ye ko di sanji tandulu la halika bi e ka ko mo fo même manke mente nga katake nkalim fo kamon kanta ali nga katake nkalim ke baro jiben wallahi du yama jaral nte da ma jaral ka kuma fo ite barala ben alma be tankala wala woto be duwala mo be e njusulata bi kana si janka diamu jam alhamdulillah rabbil alamin assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much, Uncle Falang, for that very, I don't even know, it's getting very emotional in this room. We thank you all for your bravery and for your sacrifice to free us all from the hands of the dictator. And thank you for those words of wisdom. Thank you for reminding us, particularly us, the young ones, of what it means to be principled. I think it's very important for us to have our principles and stand by them no matter what. That is what Solo and these men did at the time we all needed someone to free us. And we'll forever be grateful. I would like to call on Mohammed Sandeng, Solo's son, to come and make a few remarks. Mohammed, you're welcome on stage.
Good evening, distinguished guests. My patrimonial family here, I must admit the United Democratic Party is my patrimonial party. And it has always been said that no one and nothing can separate the Solo Sandeng name from the United Democratic Party name. And this is very, very evident. And there's no doubt to this, because looking at the way the United Democratic Party is celebrating the life of Solo, amongst others, but with particular emphasis on the way his life is being celebrated, his name and his face being made the face of our ongoing transition in the UDP, and his face being the face that we associate to democracy and freedom that we have achieved at last from the very long years of the fight, which a lot of people that started it together with my father and Honorable Usainu and all these my Bajans are no more. Most of these people are no more. We take this day to remember them very, very well, and remember their sacrifices, and remember the sacrifices of those men and women whom I might not even have had the opportunity to meet. People like Kanye Bakani and a lot of them. But just to name a few, I remember Alhaji Bulli Dahaba, and I remember Sukuta Jafine when I was very, very small. I remember how my dad would call their names and praise them for their bravery and their stance for this party. And today, I stand here as a son of this party, a son of no other party than this party. I stand here very emotional, and I might not conclude this address because of emotions, but I'll do my best to make sure I console all of you and tell you that we have no reasons to weep. If we cry, it's because we cry for our loved ones, for those that has left us, those that we wish were here today with us. Even though we've actually come to a point where the fight is no more the fight it used to be. It was the fight of machetes and crowbars and the likes, but it is no more that fight. I want to say with pride that the fight that we have in the New Gambia, the political fight that we have, is the fight of principles and the fight of policies and ideas, which makes me very proud to be a son of this party. This might not be what is expected of me to speak, but I would like to tell all of you here that this party is rooted very deep in my heart, and anytime I try to express my love for this party, I will break into tears, because growing up, I remember in full all of the struggles that my father and his colleagues went through, some of which, a very little of which I witnessed, and some of which I just hear as stories. But hearing the stories of these great men and women who in the face of dictatorship of a brutal and callous regime did not turn back, looked always forward, did not put in mind the consequences, even though they knew what the consequences of facing such a brutal dictator is. They didn't look back. They didn't think about how their families are going to miss them. They didn't think about what's going to happen to their families, like it is happening today. But they went on to sacrifice their lives. One like Uncle Falang, one like Uncle Langmarong, who is no more with us. You know, these men, I must admit, were really determined to face Yahya Jammeh on the streets, to face him in the eye and tell him to relinquish power and tell him he's incompetent. Some of these conversations actually happened in my presence when Uncle Falang would come home, you know, and very, very angry at what is happening, and would tell my dad, look, Solo, alo mune ben ninyin talala, nanyin tani na politiko tenni Yahya Jammeh talala, mimben na talala, wole ngata silo kan, na nyati li nyola, na min soto je ngata, na dimbayal yebo, jamano fana yebo. So I believe it is in this spirit that we have come this long to witness a democratic change, a completely democratic change, which this party played no minor role. But today, we are witnessing what is happening. I try as much not to actually address in this manner the situation of the politics around us, but I must say this is really disturbing to myself as a young person, you know, regarding, putting in consideration all of what I have gone through, you know, coming to see again my uncles, my fathers, throwing shades at each other. That's what I would call it. It's really shameful to be a son. And whenever I am outside there, people will actually face me, will come to me and tell me, look, what are your uncles doing? We send them to work, and they're here throwing shades at each other. I must admit that I do not in any way love what is happening in our country. I wish that we come together as we used to be, under one spirit, and push forward this propagated seed of oneness, of democracy, and of the vision of a better and a developed Gambia. We can not achieve this by pursuing personal interests in the process of administering our country in the interest of the greater population. So I want to say this. I want to say that whoever reflects, whoever sees him or herself, or whichever group sees themselves as being the subject of this address of mine should definitely reflect and reflect and reflect and think and reflect very much back in time. Times like 2006, times like 1996. I was not born by then, but my mother would tell me that, we are advised never to say, when our mothers were pregnant, but then my mother explained to me when she was carrying me, in 1996, that they got brutalized outside there when they were supporting the UDP on a campaign, and who knows what could have happened. My mother could have had a miscarriage and anything. To an extent, some people thought on my naming ceremony that I was going to be named Hussein, which actually happened when I had my second younger sibling. So, reflecting on all these struggles and other struggles, which I believe all of these two parties, which are in disagreement today, were a part of, should really reflect and know and reflect on the reasons and principles by which they stood and put their lives on the line. Because I will tell you that anybody that went out on the streets openly and campaigned against Jammeh, you put your life at stake. It is just a matter of who gave blood and who gave sweat, but everybody did that. So coming to consider all of these struggles today, like Uncle Falang said, we know what is happening. We know this split in the UDP is caused by nothing but greed and selfish interest. That is why UDP is split. Those that left the UDP in pursuit of selfish interest should really realize that if they would continue this way, if they will continue to pursue those selfish interests, those agendas which really do not have direction and do not have meaning, but they still hide behind them and try to support them, they need to reflect and understand if really they are going to continue on this crusade of theirs, then they have thrown away 22 or more years of their lives having to be with the United Democratic Party. And if these people will regret this, I think the honorable thing to do is to think again and realize for themselves. And each person, whoever is part of this split, this faction, knows very well that he or she is not doing anything other than betrayal. And if we retire to our beds and we have very great, long, in-depth conversations with our pillows, it is only the truth that falls into our heads, the real truths of our situation. So if this happens to us, when we realize that we have thrown 22 years or more of our lives by not continuing to pursue that agenda that we laid our lives down for, if we are to regret that as a faction that has actually intentions to separate themselves from the UDP and form whatever they call it, if you are to regret having to be part of these factions, I think the honorable thing to do is to get back to the UDP and continue pushing the agenda of the UDP to see a better Gambia. On that note, I would like to conclude my statement by saying that all of these young folks outside there that are taking the steps of following, the trend of the trend that was set by, I would not say Uncle Usenu, but I would say my grandfather, the General Lamin Endiba. If we would follow their trends, we would remain devoted to the principles of the United Democratic Party and push its agenda. That is, if we are going to remain UDP, like we said. What I know UDP to be is UDP that runs in our bloods. I know all UDP militants to have yellow blood. So definitely, I want to conclude by also saying that if you know you are a runaway UDP, please come back to UDP. We will embrace you with open hands. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. Thank you for that wonderful statement. I'm sure your father would have been absolutely very proud of you. You're growing up into a fine gentleman. Thank you. I would just take this honor to announce the presence of the former Vice President, Her Excellency Ajaratu Fatou Tambajang. She has been with us since morning, and I think this shows us that the sacrifice Solo and his men made on that day was not only for the United Democratic Party, because we are not the only ones enjoying this freedom. They went out to liberate Gambia itself. Thank you very much, Madam Tambajang, and I will be honored if you can please come up and say a few words. Thank you.
I wish to say I'm honored and very pleased to be among you today. Brothers, husbands, children, friends, aunties, and everything. And I want to first of all singularly recognize the leader of the United Democratic Party, His Excellency Usainu Dabo. Every member of the high table, who are my elder sisters, and my son Mahdi Jabate. I want to recognize the victims of the 22 years of the brutal regime of Yahya Jammeh. I want to recognize my auntie, the president, national president of the UDP, the press media fraternity, guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here today to celebrate with you because, as my daughter Yakumba Jaita said, it's a national cause. I have always believed that these young people sacrifice their lives, young and older people sacrifice their lives to liberate our country. We are happy that when somebody dies and you cry, it means you're crying to remember your own day. But sometimes when somebody dies, instead of crying, you celebrate them because they become living legends. I'm always honored to be here in the celebration of this gallant young people, elderly, including the students who were the pioneers or who started the liberation movement or joined the elders in liberating our country. It has been very difficult journey. But now we need to remember, we should not go back to the journey. We should always say never again. Liberia, in which I worked, where I worked for 5 years with the United Nations Development Program, when they started their Truth and Reconciliation, they did everything. What was missing was the fact that there was no social cohesion. What we have experienced in the Gambia is what Liberia, in a way, symbolically or metaphorically, also experienced. They had the war, but we also had some other form of war here. Because when somebody seizes your freedom, your civil liberty, your voice, your freedom of association, your freedom of even sleeping 24/7, or doing things that you want to do, it means the person has waged war against you. I was convinced in my humble mind that a day will come where we shall all stand tall to look at each other and say, we fought the right fight. How do we now celebrate our fight, our victory? The only way we should celebrate it is by coming together. And I very much like, and even though with my age and experience, I get very inspired when I see young people talking about peace, talking about social cohesion, talking about solidarity, talking about things that matter in their lives. Each one of us should ask his or herself, what type of Gambia do you want to live when you go? In life, we all have to have conscience. We all have to have conscience. Our conscience is what is the good things for the greater good. We should be inspired not only by our religion, but also by our national anthem, always doing good for the greater good. And nothing is ever too late. People make mistakes. I'm here, I'm not perfect. I don't expect anyone to be perfect. So in life, when you make mistakes, try to come back and rectify the mistakes. We want to call on you as elders. Just as Shakespeare says, there is always time when you leave the stage for other people. I'm not saying and I'm not praying that we are leaving the stage now, because my mom always tells me, the only time you rest is when you are in your grave. But who wants to go to the grave right now? What I'm saying, we want to leave the stage of active life, of politics, of social activism and everything. Prepare you, the young ones, so that we can be your guide, we can be your advisors. The youths must promote and champion peace. Peace, democracy is peace. Remember, your rights, the right of an individual, the right of the other person, stops where your right ends, starts from where your right ends. So my prayer is always for you, the young people, to keep focus. Focus on the greater good. Focus of emulating us. Maybe not myself, but emulating the good leaders that we have. On the 16th of May, when I saw Honorable His Excellency Ousainou Darboe coming out of his house, I met him at the door. And what he had was the Gambian flag. And for me, wherever the Gambian flag is, that's where I'm going to kill myself. The reason why, when I met them at First Njagachoy, we went from First Njagachoy to Koina, and people wondered why. Because of the same national flag. We should keep the flag intact. by being peaceful, by promoting peace, by promoting social cohesion, and by ensuring that there is always justice in everything we do. Justice is something, it's not a common commodity. It is a rare commodity, and you only gain justice when you stand up to it. And standing up to justice for those who are the fallen heroes, we are calling on His Excellency, President Adama Barrow and his government to recognize the day as Martyr Day from the Coalition 2016 perspective. We are also calling on government to see how much they can support the families of those fallen heroes. Of course, there are also standing heroes, those who are alive and have gone through torture and all forms of discrimination and pain are still alive. Perhaps those people also, we are calling on him and his government, because it is a responsibility on government to take care of its citizens, that they must be given medical treatment, medical care, so that they would not regret for standing up for their country. They did not stand for their individuals, but they stood for the country. Whoever stands for the country should be recognized. Whoever falls for the country should be recognized. On this note, I wish you all the best. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants Jannatul Firdaus of the fallen heroes, and that He continues to unite us as a people, to love us as a people, to guide us as a people, to bless us as a people, and to leave our leaders with us as long as He wants, because everything is Allah's decree. Thank you so much for giving me the honor and pleasure. I was not here to make any statement, but this is a special occasion, and I don't want to miss it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for that wonderful statement. Indeed, the young ones are looking up to you all, and you are setting great examples for us to follow. As we, the young people, are the future of this country, it is our role, our task, I would say, to uphold the gains of our democracy, this democracy that so much effort and so much sacrifice has been put into for us to achieve. We thank you very much for your time. I would like to welcome our guest speaker, Madi Jabate. He is a civil rights activist. I don't think Madi needs much introduction. All right, sorry, my apologies. We would have, before the lecture, we would invite His Excellency Honorable Usainu Dabo, our party leader and Secretary General, to make a statement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. When Mohammed was delivering his statement, it really sent me recollecting the history of United Democratic Party from 1996 to April 2016, particularly is seen in Basse when we held our Congress, and Solo was elevated from being the youth leader of the United Democratic Party to becoming the National Organizing Secretary. Still recollect in the shoe, black shoe, shining. And for the first time, I saw Solo stuck in his shirt, immaculately dressed, and he stood there on the podium, surging into the crowd that had just elected him as National Organizing Secretary, and gave his thanks to them. And I believe probably that was a moment that probably Solo decided that as National Organizing Secretary, I must cause something for the Gambia, I must do something for the Gambia. But the rest of it, I think, if not already well documented, I believe will be properly documented. And your plea, coming from a very young person who, on the founding of the United Democratic Party, was being carried by his mother in the womb, I think for us, that's very didactic, and that what you have stated here is really food for thought for all of us. But that is just by the side. And Madam Moderator, Your Excellency, Madam Fatmata Jallo Tambajang, former Vice President. It does appear that there is no want of former Vice Presidents here. Honorable Majority Leader and members of the National Assembly here present, Lord Mayor, Mayoress of the capital city of Banjul, I think Ajas Kanaka calls her Bur Banjul, my fellow Gambians, I thank all of you for gracing this auspicious occasion, commemorating the life and legacy of a remarkable patriot and a comrade, Ibrahim Solo Sandeng. May Allah be pleased with him. Before going any further, let me acknowledge with deep gratitude Solo's wonderful family, both immediate and extended, who, with admirable grace and faith, have endured his absence. To you, I say, a grateful nation, praise for your beloved husband and father, and wants you to be rest assured that his record of selfless devotion and commitment to the Gambia he loved dearly has produced an enduring legacy that would be bequeathed to generations yet unborn. Whenever the history of our nation is written, it will be said that Ibrahim Solo Sandeng, an ordinary citizen, stood up and did his duty to his country in fighting for values he believed in, at a time when his beloved country was being oppressed under the brutal thumb of an unconstructed tyrant. In that struggle, he proceeded with determination, sustained his efforts over many years, endured hardship, and never relented or looked for convenient ways to abandon what he believed in. This was the solemn duty to the nation he shared with the rest of us, himself and his family. As someone who worked closely with him for many years, I can attest to his humility, devotion to the cause of justice, freedom and democracy. He was fearless in the pursuit of the ideas he believed in. Solo envisioned a free and democratic Gambia that is at peace with itself and its diverse people, seeking opportunities in a growing economy. This is the journey he started with us as a founding member of the United Democratic Party in 1996, preceding some 20 years preceding his martyrdom in the hands of a vile regime he doggedly opposed throughout his existence. Solo's life, though cut short, is the very epitome of what constitutes a transformative legacy. He was an honorary Gambian whose pursuits for a better Gambia over many years culminated to that freedom march held on 14th of April 2016 from Bambo to Westfield, together with his colleagues, setting off a cascade of events that led to the end of tyranny in our country. Here was an ordinary man whose act of courage and faith in the promise of democracy directly resulted in a historic and transformative change called the New Gambia. Solo, with his colleagues, set out to restore democracy, and by the grace of God, their sacrifices birthed a free and democratic Gambia. We are saddened that Solo is not with us to witness a free Gambia, but we take exceptional pride that he has left us an honorable legacy. We are grateful to him and all Gambians who have lost their lives in the battle to end tyranny. Their collective martyrdom imposes on those of us who value their ultimate sacrifices a responsibility to uphold the very ideals for which they paid the ultimate price. We must be cognizant of the fact that freedom in any appreciable amount is never free. It takes sacrifices to gain it, and it requires vigilance to retain it in any substantive form. Consequently, we are all grateful for the seeds of democracy that are beginning to germinate in the New Gambia. An independent judiciary, fundamental rights like freedom of speech, association, equal protection under the law are among others that are all on the trajectories on the right track. We are gradually shaking off the vestiges of dictatorship in the conduct of public affairs, and for the first time in a long while, Gambians can expect a fair hearing in courts. See their elected representatives in parliament perform their parliamentary duties without executive interference, and the area council fulfilling their constitutional roles as envisioned in our laws. We see a vigorous independent press informing and inquiring in ways that serve the public good and holding those entrusted with responsibility to account. All this help in the consolidation of democracy, the priority of most Gambians. We recognize that democracy building is a process and not an event. It requires time, the constant engagement and vigilance of the citizenry. Even mature democracies in the world with governance experiences spanning centuries are constantly trying to improve their governance systems. We must learn from their rich and diverse experiences in shaping our own nascent democracy. Rarely in history of man does a generation have an opportunity to comprehensively recast the governance system of a country for succeeding generations. But the current generation of Gambians have this opportunity. We must exploit this rare and awesome opportunity with tact, care, and endeavor to lay a foundation for a functioning democracy that can stand the test of time. We must aspire for a Gambia where sovereignty resides firmly in the citizens and the rule of law is supreme, ensuring that dictatorship of whatever description never again emerges, much more less take root in the Gambia. As we enjoy the newfound freedom our citizens have collectively battled through blood, sweat, sacrifices, and prayer, we must strive even far harder to mitigate against any tendency to erode them. Democracy, a wise man once observed, is only maintained by those who are willing to do what it takes to keep it. We must therefore constantly engage our elected representatives to follow through comprehensively on the ambitious reform agenda the government has set itself to accomplish. They have so far accomplished some important ones, but there still remains other significant areas of reform that should be addressed with urgency. We must all be, as responsible citizens, with utmost fidelity, uphold the principles of separation of powers, the very foundation of our democratic governance. When we get the balance of power dynamic among our three branches right, our democracy will be more stable, enduring, and our institutions will operate more effectively. With a good and stable democratic system in place, anchored on a well-thought-out progressive constitution, our Gambia will run as a well-oiled machine regardless of the caliber of leadership that may be in charge at any given time, because a robust and well-balanced system in place will mitigate against these excesses. In conclusion, Your Excellency, Madam Vice President, ladies and gentlemen, let us hold ourselves, the citizens, as the principal custodians of the democracy Solo and his fellow martyrs died to help us to attain. It is a sacred trust that requires devotion and effort by all those who value freedom and sacrifice. As the foundation has been laid, let us now build the house to accommodate our diverse people in pursuit of our shared objectives. When we succeed in consolidation of our democracy, when we succeed in the consolidation of our democracy, we will deliver prosperity and happiness to our citizens. We can then with pride shine as a beacon among nations, among democratic nations. We have to be said that our small nation of 2 million people peacefully vanquished a terrible tyranny and in its place spawned a functional plural democracy. That is the duty and legacy we owe to a simple man who helped change history. His name was Ibrahim Solo Sandeng. As we celebrate and commemorate April 14, we must also remember Solo Kuruma, Lam Marong, Ibrahima Janko Sise, Khalil Singh Sedi Khan, Lamin Manjang, and other fallen heroes. May God grant them Jannah, Jannat Firdausi, and bless their families and the Gambia. I thank all of you for being here, and my gratitude to all those who are here in spirit with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, second former Vice President. It's interesting that we have two former Vice Presidents on the high table. Thank you very much. Again, I will take this opportunity to thank you for your leadership. If you did not go out with your men on April 16th, probably Solo's death would have been in vain. You continued the sacrifice Solo made for us to achieve this day today, for us to be here enjoying the democracy you also fought very hard for. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thank you. I would now like to welcome our guest speaker, who is no other than Madi Jabate. Madi is a civil rights activist. Like I said, I don't think Madi needs much introduction. Mr. Jabate is a man that is playing his part, indubitably. It is indubitably clear that Mr. Jabate is playing his part in upholding our newfound democracy. If you're looking for a vigilante, here is one. If you're looking for someone who is never tired of asking the right questions, of encouraging the young ones to ask the right questions, in holding government accountable, here is the man you're looking for. Madi, thank you for the effort, your time. I always ask, does Madi ever get tired of all these write-offs? Thank you, we appreciate it. We appreciate your stance in this newfound democracy. We appreciate your time and effort you're putting into making sure this democracy is consolidated, just like the party leader just said. Thank you very much, and you're welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, Akumba Jete. Rest assured, you also inspire me. I've said in many places, the future of the Gambia can be seen in you as a young Gambian woman and taking the position that you are taking. Let me first recognize the party leader, Mr. Ousainou Darboe, and of course, his second former vice president, Madam Tambajang, and of course, Adiyam Seka and my mom here. Can you get your name? Yamundaw. I want to recognize the majority leader, Mr. Kebaro, a man I have worked with for many years, and all National Assembly members present here, and as well the mayor of Banjul. I wish to also recognize in the audience the head of the Gambian Civil Society, Mr. Usman Yabo. Let me say, I feel highly honored to have been called. I feel, for purposes of transparency, folks need to know this, I've been called by none other than my own beloved brother, Almami Fandin Tal, yesterday around this time to tell me that the party leader, and of course, the entire party wishes me to deliver this lecture today because of unforeseen circumstances. Certainly, this is not a request I will turn down in honor of Solo Sandeng and what Solo Sandeng and all of the matters that Mr. Darboe mentioned meant for the Gambia. So I have decided to, yes, spend the whole night yesterday because I feel a gathering like this, a subject like this, needs serious conversation that citizens need to have. 50 years of independence, 22 years of tyranny. When we come to this point, we must realize when we sit here, it is not for picnic. We should speak, frankly to each other, hold each other to account. So indeed, Solo Sandeng will go down in the annals of the Gambia as that larger-than-life human being, in whose life generations of Gambians will find a source of inspiration and motivation to stand up for country and democracy. The story of Solo Sandeng cannot also be told without also paying tribute to a few of our current crop of Gambian political leaders who stood up against the tyranny of Yahya Jammeh for 22 years. In this regard, allow me to therefore pay tribute to them. Halifa Sallah, who has inspired me personally very early in my life to stand up for country and Africa and the defense of truth and justice. Omar Amadou Jallow, OJ, whose courage and steadfastness in the fight against dictatorship I consider to be second to none. And Zidia Jatta, who I call the humble giant, a man with immense force of intellect and integrity, who continues to inspire me and many Gambians. In paying tribute to Solo Sandeng and in narrating the story of the fight against dictatorship in the Gambia, we are compelled to place Ousainou Darboe equally high in the ladder for his unshakable courage and determination in combating tyranny over the decades. It is rather unfortunate that our society and its politics have become severely polluted and polarized to the point that we peddle more of misinformation and character assassination than engage in sober and critical analysis and understanding of issues. For that matter, I have seen incredible amount of vilification and demonization of Hussein, also of Khalifa, OJ or Syria, among others, that I find incredibly difficult to fathom. But as a person who has grown up quite close to Hussein, and indeed known him for that matter, I have no doubts that this man is a decent, kind-hearted, and well-meaning senior citizen. In his recently launched book, A Date with Destiny, former Minister Demba Ali Jao had described Halifa Sallah, and rightly so, as the most detribalized politician in the Gambia. I used to state that indeed, Ousainou A.N.M. Darboe also equals in that category, as both the most detribalized person and politician in the Gambia. Not only has Ousainou spoken against tribalism publicly, like many of our political leaders, but more within the circle of his family, friends, and colleagues, one cannot fail to notice the non-tribalized relationship this man has created, nurtured, and supported over the years. Having said that, let me make a disclaimer. I am not a member of the UDP or any political party, or even dreaming of putting myself in the same bracket as Ousainou Darboe or other political giants I have earlier mentioned. Indeed, on many issues regarding the Gambia, I have fundamental disagreements with these men. But honesty demands that we speak the truth when we have to speak. And that is what I have just done here, as far as I know. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to also recognize the remarkable contributions of Hamad and Keba, Fatmata Tambajang, Maya Ahmed Fati, Henry Gomez, and Dr. Asatu Toure, among others, who all played an incredible role in the fight against tyranny in our country. Chairperson, the story of Solo is a direct replica of the story of Gambian independence itself. The independence of the Gambia began as a protest until it was achieved. It began in 1918 when Edward Francis Small protested at the abuse of a fellow Gambian by a European trader in Balanga. In response, the Methodist Church, where he worked, dismissed him for insubordination. E.F. Small then became restless as he launched a ferocious fight at the gross abuse and exploitation that Gambians were subjected to by the colonialists. He published articles and petitions about the injustices of colonial government in his newspaper, The Gambia Outlook and Senegambian Reporter, and organized various groups and protests to demand better working conditions for public servants, fair price for our farmers, and mobilize the voices and the participation of Gambians to demand representative institutions. With his slogan, "No taxation without representation," E.F. Small launched a barrage of petitions to the colonial government to the point that he was labeled, quote, "a self-appointed champion of non-existing grievances felt by an imaginary body of citizens," unquote. With the power of voice and protest, E.F. Small indeed triggered the unquenchable quest for independence that was to come several decades later. Therefore, as we mark the third anniversary of the protests and the assassination and the legacy, or nay, the martyrdom of Solo Sandeng, we cannot but fail to recognize the value of the freedom, of the right to freedom of expression and freedom of assembly in the life of a society that is claiming to institute and practice democracy and good governance in order to protect fundamental human rights of citizens according to the rule of law. To ensure that democracy prevails, which usher in good governance, it is imperative that citizens and their various associations, including political parties, have the space and liberty to participate in the decision-making processes of their society, which includes holding duty bearers to account. One of the highest forms of participation of citizens in determining the managers of the affairs and the resources of their society is through elections. That is to vote for and to contest elections in a free and fair manner. Therefore, in order to enable citizens to perform this most patriotic duty, the laws and institutions that prevail must be of such character and spirit that they will ensure the unfettered participation of all through a clean and transparent process that will produce the undiluted choice of the people. The protest by Solo Sandeng therefore speaks to the heart of democracy and good governance. His demand for electoral reforms was meant to ensure that Gambians obtain legitimate and undiluted representation. Without such representation, it therefore means that society will be led by individuals who have no legitimacy and authority to govern. Hence, their management and control of the affairs and the resources of the country will also be illegitimate. Electoral reforms, therefore, echo quite well with the battle cry of E.F. Small that there must be no taxation without representation. This is a long-standing historic and eternal democratic demand that we saw emerge first out of the Americas in the 1700s, when patriots there called for the end of British colonialism simply because citizens did not determine the government that controlled and managed the taxes that they were forced to pay. In our case, while we elected representatives who taxed people, the difference is that laws governing those elections were unfair. For that matter, the representatives that emerged out of this flawed election were not only illegitimate, they also went further to subvert the rule of law and placing themselves beyond and above scrutiny, even by those institutions that are legally mandated to hold them accountable, such as the IEC. One could recall how the APRC regime was notorious for abuse of electoral laws by blatantly utilizing state resources for their campaigns, or harassing political opponents and further preventing the state media from providing equal media coverage to the opposition, among other electoral malpractices. Because of its illegitimate ascendancy and control of power, the APRC ensured that citizens either lacked the ability or at great cost to their lives and liberty if they wish to engage in political activity. The murder of Solo and the torture and maiming of several of his colleagues is a testimony of both the flawed electoral laws and therefore the undemocratic scenario that such illegitimacy produced. One has only looked at the Elections Act as well as the Constitution in multiple provisions to realize that elections in the Gambia at that time only served to produce poor and illegitimate representation in which the incumbent had undue advantage to not only maintain power, but to abuse it with impunity, hence undermining democracy and good governance. This was what Solo was fighting against, yet until today, we see this same scenario unfolding as President Barrow also equally engages in exploiting incumbency beyond what the Constitution and the laws provide. The slogan, "No taxation without representation" by E.F. Small and its American forerunners on one hand, and the demand for electoral reforms on the other by Solo Sandeng and compatriots decades and centuries later, come from the same philosophy and share the same objectives, without which we cannot ensure a just and accountable governance system in the Gambia and anywhere else in the world. These two objectives emerge out of and speak to and giving meaning to Section 1, subsection 2 of our Gambia Constitution that states that the sovereignty of the Gambia resides in the people of the Gambia, from whom all organs of government derive their authority, and in whose name and for whose welfare and prosperity the powers of government are to be exercised in accordance with this Constitution. Elections and representation are therefore at the heart of our sovereignty. Our sovereignty as individual citizens and a nation as a whole is our right and duty to keep by any means necessary. The Constitution guarantees the right of citizens to defend their sovereignty under Section 6. Hence, the protest by Solo Sandeng, just like E.F. Small many decades before him, was a struggle to defend the sovereignty of the Gambia. As a non-legal person, but as a citizen who is deeply conscious of and values my sovereignty, I have come to realize that the intention of our Constitution is to deliver only democracy as a means to create good governance in the Gambia that will protect our rights. When I read the Constitution, I see only my rights and duties as a citizen clearly spelled out on one hand, and on the other hand, I see only the listing of only two obligations of the state, which is one, to protect my rights, and two, to fulfill my needs, no more nor less. In that Constitution, I see that the decisions and actions of the state and its agents must be according to processes and institutions clearly set out such that there is no space for ambiguity, imagination, or personal feelings to guide the conduct of agents of the state to perform their functions. The Gambia is a republic and not a monarchy, hence the ultimate power in this country belongs to the people. Elected and appointed persons in the service of the state are nothing other than public servants, tasked to protect and fulfill the rights and needs of citizens. In a republic, only a democratic dispensation could prevail, in which free and fair elections is the most indispensable method of upholding the sovereignty of citizens and the legitimacy of government and the authority of public servants. Madam Chairperson, the meaning of Solo Sandeng and his compatriots is that we must defend democracy and good governance at all times. Foremost in the defense and the nurturing of democracy is to promote and protect freedom of expression and freedom of assembly. Like Solo and before E.F. Small, what history has shown is that the two most indispensable tools in the hands of citizens to create and nurture democratic dispensation are freedom of expression and freedom of assembly, including freedom of association. It is indeed disheartening that when this new government took office, they first sought to conduct piecemeal electoral reforms instead of a comprehensive reform of laws that infringe the right to freedom of expression and the right to freedom of assembly. What must be realized is that the best electoral laws are meaningless so long as freedoms of expression and assembly are not expanded and protected. Fellow citizens, the importance of freedom of expression and assembly is such that it is necessary that we dwell on this matter a little bit more. The United Nations Human Rights Committee said freedom of expression, including freedom of opinion, is an indispensable condition for the full development of the person. They are essential for any society. They constitute the foundation stone for every free and democratic society. The two freedoms are closely related, with freedom of expression providing the vehicle for the exchange and development of opinions. The committee went forth to state that freedom of expression is a necessary condition for the realization of the principles of transparency and accountability that are in turn essential for the promotion and the protection of human rights. One will find that the freedoms of expression and opinion are guaranteed by international law and indeed by the laws of most countries of the world except in dictatorships. The Gambia Constitution under Section 25 fully guarantees the freedoms of expression and opinion as well as freedoms of assembly and association. In fact, from a political science point of view, it is the opinion of the citizen that forms the basis of a democratic government. No doubt every elected official would love to claim that their election is based on the will of the people. That the government is the will of the people constituted based on their consent is sacrosanct. Consent is will, and will is opinion expressed through votes in an election. Freedom of expression is therefore the right to seek, receive, and impart information, ideas, or opinions of all kinds by all means. While freedom of expression, like many other rights, could be restricted, indeed, freedom of expression also includes ideas that may be offensive. Without freedom of expression, there cannot be transparency, hence the ability of citizens to participate in democracy and exert their sovereignty over the state will be severely limited, if ever at all. It is for this reason that the creation of a freedom of information law that will ensure that citizens access public information in the custody of public institutions is urgent and necessary. Sadly, both the Gambia government and the National Assembly, as well as our political parties, are failing to create this much-needed law in order to nurture and consolidate democracy in the Gambia. The right to freedom of expression has been found to give life and meaning to all other rights. For example, the UN Special Rapporteur on freedom of peaceful assembly and association noted that the right to assemble and associate, together with freedom of expression, are essential components of democracy. In the first place, these rights empower citizens to express their political opinions, or engage in literary and artistic pursuits or other cultural, economic, and social activities. Also, engage in religious observances or other beliefs, as well as form and join trade unions and cooperatives, and elect leaders to represent their interests and hold them accountable. In consolidating the gains of our democracy, therefore, we must ensure that these fundamental freedoms are actively and fully protected and expanded. But it is indeed tragic and very worrying indeed that the Supreme Court went ahead to rule in November 2017 that the current Public Order Act is constitutional even when that obnoxious law clearly violates the Constitution and directly undermines the tenets of democracy and good governance, hence damage the sovereignty of Gambians. The UN Special Rapporteur states that an assembly is an intentional and temporary gathering of in a private or public space for a specific purpose. It therefore includes demonstrations, inside meetings, strikes, processions, rallies, or even sit-ins. Assemblies play a vibrant role in mobilizing the population and formulating grievances and aspirations, facilitating the celebration of events, and importantly, influencing the state's public policy. The Special Rapporteur went further to state that the rights to freedom of peaceful assembly and of association serve as a vehicle for the exercise of many other civil, cultural, economic, political, and social rights. Again, freedom of assembly is guaranteed by international law as well as by the Gambia Constitution under Section 25D, that everyone has a right to freedom to assemble and demonstrate peaceably without arms. While the right to peaceful assembly and the right to freedom of association are not absolute rights, that is, they can be subject to certain restrictions which are prescribed by law and necessary in a democratic society in the interest of national security or public safety, among other public concerns. The Special Rapporteur, however, says freedom is the rule and restriction is the exception. That is, the restrictions must not impair the essence of the right to freedom of assembly. In other words, the best practice is that the presumption be in favor of holding peaceful assemblies. Therefore, states bear positive obligation to facilitate the exercise of this right by establishing in law, for example, that the police should be obliged to facilitate peaceful assemblies and not to break them up. This is why international human rights law, as well as the African Commission guidelines on freedom of assembly and association in Africa, provides that the right to freedom of assembly should be subjected only to a notification regime and not authorization. That is, organizers will only have to notify the authorities and not seek permission to exercise the right to freedom of assembly. In fact, the best practice in the world, around the world, stipulate that such notification is usually for a minimum time, such as 48 hours to the day the assembly is planned. In fact, in most places, prior notification is ideally required only for large meetings or meetings which may disrupt road traffic. Thus, in most jurisdictions, one will notice that the failure to even notify authorities would not make them dissolve an assembly or protest, or arrest and prosecute organizers, which is a far cry from what obtains in the Gambia under the so-called democratic dispensation. Madam Chairperson, ladies and gentlemen, when one looks at the existing Public Order Act, it is not difficult to notice that it is conceived with the intention to restrict, to prohibit, to deny, and to harm citizens in the enjoyment of their right to peaceful assembly, contrary to best practices around the world and what is guaranteed in international law and standards. In the first place, the sanctions of fines and imprisonment in the Act are heavy-handed, disproportionate, and undemocratic. How could we put a citizen in jail for 3 years for merely going out in the street to peacefully show his or her disagreement with his or her government, when that government, in the first place, derives its legitimacy and authority from that citizen? Imagine what happened to Solomon to protest a legitimate matter, electoral reform. And a very significant episode that Gambians miss out was the protest led by Hussein Dabo the day after. That really is the instrumental trigger that cascaded in what he described that brought about the change that came. If Hussein has stayed home, it is very clear Solo's case will die down as how Dira Hydra's case died down, and so many others, or how April 10 and 11. So in celebrating Solo, April 14, we must recognize the significant value of April 16, 2016. Secondly, the granting of permission in the Act is arbitrary and discretionary. That is, based on the satisfaction and the opinion of the IGP. Is it not a manifestation of dictatorship that we can give one public official the power to determine how and when and where citizens should enjoy their sovereign rights without providing any means to those citizens to challenge such a decision? The IG is not the king of the Gambia. He's an employee of me. How can he determine how I should exercise my rights? Furthermore, the Act provides no definition or guidelines for the president to declare a place a disturbed area. In the Act, the president can decide to describe or label, classify, whatever, colony as disturbed area and have imposed any form of restriction, state of emergency in that area. And this can happen such declaration can take place for up to 3 months. What is even more ridiculous about the undemocratic nature of the Public Order Act is that it requires citizens to have a permit to use a public address system. How can one separate a procession or assembly from the use of loudspeakers? Imagine we should sit here and talk, but we cannot use loudspeakers. What is the value? Thirdly, the Act requires citizens to seek prior authorization before embarking on a demonstration and not a notification. Further giving absolute power to the state to determine how citizens should enjoy their sovereign rights, a tendency that only exists with absolute monarchs and despots. By asking for prior authorization, it means that the Act does not consider that there could come a time when citizens would engage in spontaneous protest, because not all protests can be planned. Issues can emerge and immediately citizens rise up. So the Act does not consider there could be a time when citizens would engage in spontaneous protests in response to urgent issues in society. Yet that would be criminal according to this bad law. In a nutshell, the Act consists only of prohibition and denial, and not restriction as required by the Constitution and international law. Hence, this Act has given unlimited power to the government to deny the right to freedom of assembly in the Gambia. That is tyranny. To uphold the gates of democracy, therefore, it is incumbent on the state of the Gambia to repeal this obnoxious law immediately and to fulfill its obligation by actively protecting peaceful assemblies and its participants. This means the state must keep its hands off from peaceful assemblies by not unduly interfering with the right to freedom of assembly by law or practice in any way. Furthermore, the state must build and strengthen the human rights capacity of the civil service and the security sector so as to facilitate the protection of civil liberties. That is, the state must ensure that law enforcement institutions are well trained, equipped, and sensitized about crowd control so that they will avoid the use of force and violence in dealing with citizens who are exercising their rights. The Public Order Act, as it is constituted, is a direct threat to democracy and good governance in the Gambia. It limits our ability to hold our government, public institutions, private sector to account. It is indeed disheartening to note that the entire state of the Gambia, that is the National Assembly, the executive, and the judiciary, have all individually and collectively sought to uphold this bad law 2 years after the end of dictatorship. Until today, as I'm talking, the executive has failed to place a bill before the National Assembly to repeal the current act and create a new law that upholds the rights of citizens to peaceful assembly. Just as the executive have failed, the National Assembly has also failed to place a bill for the reform of this law through a private member's bill. And worst of all, the judiciary went ahead to certify this bad law as constitutional. By upholding and enforcing the Public Order Act, the state of the Republic of the Gambia as currently constituted is therefore the greatest threat to democracy and good governance in the Gambia. It is precisely because of this state failure that we witness the murder and the maiming of innocent citizens in Faraba in June 2018. While many more Gambians continue to be severely beaten, kicked, and slapped by our security and law enforcement agents anytime, citizens assemble as we continue to witness in Gunjur, in Tanene, in Katong, and elsewhere unabated. It is precisely because of this Public Order Act that we experienced the massacre of 14 Gambian children and the maiming of many more in 2000. Because of this law, the late Femi Peters had to go to jail unconstitutionally in 2010 to be followed by a lawyer, Usenu Dago, and many of his party members in 2016. Yet, until today, our political parties and the state refuse to address this matter. That is tragic. Therefore, to consolidate the gains of democracy, we need to change our laws in the first place in a comprehensive and robust manner. For example, we need not only change the age requirement for president in the Constitution in Section 62, as well as the security of tenure of members, National Assembly members in Section 91, while we fail to address other requirements for the election of president or parliamentarians or even election system as a whole in the Gambia. Similarly, we cannot change the requirements for party registration and nomination of candidates with a rush, yet we fail to address political party transparency and accountability, including campaign financing. Failure to undertake these reforms holistically would still mean the electoral laws are flawed, which will only generate representation that is not legitimate, hence undermine our democracy and dilute our sovereignty. Apart from electoral laws, we also need to repeal the Indemnity Act to pave the way for accountability and closure for the April 10 and 11 atrocities, while the need for comprehensive review of the criminal code is long overdue. Media-related laws must also change in order to pave the way for a more professional media that will be able to effectively hold the Gambian government accountable on behalf of the people, as required by the Constitution. Similarly, the Elections Act needs urgent and innovative reform so as to make our political parties more inclusive, more democratic, and more accountable, and make them less regional or tribal in character, if not make them completely de-regionalized, de-tribalized, and non-sectarian. The sad reality is that there are many parties in this country, if not all, that are predominantly inclined towards single tribes and regions due to composition of their membership, leadership, or messaging, or by design or by default, consciously or unconsciously. Our democracy cannot be consolidated in the absence of a fully functional and democratic political parties. And we need to speak about political parties. Our democracy cannot be consolidated in the absence of fully functional and democratic political parties that institute and practice effective internal governance, decentralization of power and decision-making, and are transparently transparent and accountable, and allow for periodic change of leadership. If our democracy is to grow and become strong, we need political parties that are knowledge-based and committed to research and innovation, and shut off all vestiges of feudal, colonial, and monarchical tendencies and practices. Madam Chairperson, let us remember that political parties are very important and instrumental in the life of the country. In the first place, it is political parties that produce the president, who forms and leads the government, and National Assembly members who play oversight functions, including lawmaking and the distribution of our national cake. Hence, if a political party is not democratic, well-governed, and inclusive of gender, youth, persons with disability, and other ethnic and religious groups in the Gambia, then such a party cannot deliver democracy when it assumes state power. In other words, the kind of president, or parliamentarians, or mayor, or local councils we have depends on the kind of parties we have. If we have progressive, democratic parties, surely we will produce progressive and democratic presidents, National Assembly members, mayors, and local councils, which can only translate into enhanced democracy good governance and improved socio-economic development for people. Hence, if we have a useless, a lack of vision and a corrupt president, and a parliament like that, and an area council like that, it is because they come from similar parties. Political parties are not only governments in waiting, but they are also primary accountability mechanisms to check the existing government. Political parties are therefore also major sources in the formulation, implementation, and monitoring of public policy and legislation and the attainment of national development goals. Therefore, the need to have modern, democratic, and inclusive political parties cannot be overemphasized. I want to emphasize, therefore, that to uphold and expand the gains of our democracy, let us empower political parties, which includes holding them to account. Our political parties must be seen to defend democracy and the republic by actively participating and fulfilling their roles. In my assessment of Gambia's political parties, they leave much to be desired, as they continue to be saturated with patronage and personality politics. Not only are our political parties stuck with all modes of operations and conservative mentalities about leadership and governance, they are also not progressive enough. Hence, they are neither proactive nor seeking to set the agenda for the new democratic Gambia. For example, it is now 2 years, yet not a single political party has challenged the current president and the government in court for their numerous unconstitutional acts. It is now clear that President Adama Barrow is neither interested nor will he pursue system change at all. Yet, none of our parties who are represented in the National Assembly ever took an effort to bring about system change. In fact, I strongly believe that system change should start from and by our political parties through their representatives in the National Assembly by passing private members' bills. Furthermore, our political parties should be seen doing what political parties do in other countries by bringing their supporters out onto the streets to demand system change and hold the government accountable. Equally, essentially, political parties must be seen organizing and leading public forums to generate and exchange ideas about public policy, legislation, development, and the overall governance of the Gambia so as to further influence, empower, and encourage citizens to actively participate in national affairs. Indeed, the role that our parties can play in upholding and expanding democracy in our society is unlimited. Chairperson, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to once again highlight that the Gambia is a republic, and not a monarchy, for which the citizens have a duty to keep and not to take for granted or destroy it. A republic is a public property and a public concern. Hence, it is the members of that republic who must keep that republic safe and sound. Keeping the republic in good condition means making our society free, open, and secure for all, so that all can participate and pursue our legal and legitimate individual and collective interests without harming each other. In this regard, while I stand to be a strong advocate for freedom of expression and assembly and indeed all human rights, I also strongly believe that the very essence of human rights is about responsibility. In the exercise of our rights, we are required to respect and protect all human rights and human dignity, for without the responsibility to respect and protect rights, then human rights have no meaning. When we damage human rights or devalue human dignity by engaging in hate speech, character assassination, vilification of each other, and sheer hatred and discrimination based on tribe, religion, sexual orientation, disability, caste, or sexism, then we will surely undermine democracy and damage our republic. I am of the view that the government does not need a democracy where citizens merely have the space and the ability to freely express themselves and vote at elections, yet we live in poverty, in insecurity, lack of basic social services, high cost of living, and led by a government that is corrupt, inefficient, and lacking transparency, as we see in many other African countries. in upholding and expanding the gains of democracy, it is necessary that we understand and position ourselves on a path in which democracy will indeed translate into affordable, accessible, and quality delivery of public goods and services to give us better and higher standard of living. Our votes and the state must be instruments through which we will uplift the dignity of Gambians, because we have a democracy that will give them a truly good government that is open, inclusive, accountable, and responsive. In building such a democracy, the role of the media cannot be ignored, as it is one of the most indispensable instruments there is to protect and expand democracy and institutionalize good governance. Our media has a definite role as specified in the Constitution under Section 207, that they must hold the government of the Gambia accountable on behalf of the people. For that matter, there is utter urgency to repeal all draconian media laws and decriminalize all media offenses as a necessary condition in building and expanding our democratic gains. In that regard, members of our media must also take the lead in enhancing their professional competence and ethical standards. As Joseph Pulitzer, a renowned American journalist, once noted more than 100 years ago, I quote, "Our republic and its press will rise and fall together. An able, disinterested, public-spirited press with trained intelligence to know the right and courage to do it can preserve that public virtue without which popular government is a sham and mockery. A cynical, mercenary, demagogic press will produce in time a people as base as itself. The power to mold the future of the republic will be in the hands of the journalists of future generations." So the challenge of Solo Sandeng is to the journalists as well. Having said that, I cannot ignore or forget to speak about my own constituency, the almighty civil society. In a speech to the Czech Parliament in 1997, President Václav Havel, a renowned trade unionist who became president, said this about the civil society, which I find to be true then and today and forever. He says, I quote, "Civil society constitutes a true guarantee of political stability. The more a community develops the institutions and instruments of a civil society, the more resistant it is to political windstorms or upheavals. Solid structures built from below. The communists knew this very well, which is why they were vigorous in attacks on civil society. Jammeh did it, and we are seeing elements of that attack on Gambian civil society again in this new government. But we won't bother. We won't bother. Hence, our democracy cannot grow in the absence of the active and full participation of civil society groups. Our civil society must serve as the conscience of our nation by standing up to defend the people's interests and human rights against the excesses, malpractices, and violations from the state and the private sector, but also from the political parties and politicians. To do this, our civil society is required to demonstrate the highest standards of professionalism, impartiality, and consistency. The protest led by Solo Sandeng should have been led by a Gambian civil society long before April 2016. But we are here today. In this new Gambia, therefore, our civil society must rise up to the occasion to become determined and uncompromising defenders of human rights, become advocates for transparency and accountability in both the public and the private sectors, and seek to empower citizens with civic education and social mobilization to enhance our democracy. Until and unless we have an engaged and robust civil society that is steadfast and focused, the benefits of democracy will continue to elude us. Chairperson, ladies and gentlemen, to conclude, Solo and his compatriots marched on 14th April 2016 to challenge illegitimacy, bad governance in the Gambia. These patriots have thrown us a challenge that we must uphold the sovereignty of the Gambia at all times and ensure that there is democracy in which we can enjoy all of our civil, political, economic, social, and cultural rights without fetters. Hence, when we come to the 3rd anniversary of Solo Sandeng, we must face each other without tears to question and hold each other accountable. This is a challenge that I have taken up personally, and it is a challenge I wish to execute to the best of my ability without fear or favor until the end of time. I hope all Gambians will take up this challenge as it is thrown at us by Solo Sandeng. The new Gambia we clamor today is a product of that challenge, and it behoves on us all, not only as a political imperative, but also as a moral question to realize that we must stand up on that path of Solo Sandeng and compatriots, and henceforth ensure that democracy continues to shine on this land, to uphold our sovereignty and institute a government based on the undiluted will of the people. I want to end with a quote by Longfellow. Lives of great men and women all remind us we can make our lives sublime. And departing, leave behind us footprints on the sands of time. Solo Sandeng has left his footprints on the sands of the Gambia. It will be seen whether we do him honor by standing up and fighting for what he stood for and pay the ultimate price. The ball is in our court. Solo is not dead. Martyrs don't die. They live in the conscience of their people. Long live Solo Sandeng. Long live Solo Kroma. Long live Lang Maram. Long live Ibrahim Sise. And indeed, all those Gambians who died in the fight to end dictatorships and to restore Thank you very much.
Our Sanyang Seaview Estate is approximately 15 minutes drive away from the busy hub of Brusubi roundabout and into the heart of nature, where you can have a peaceful and relaxed lifestyle with your family. You can buy a finished 4-bedroom story with 5-year flexible payment plan or a service plot with 2-year payment plan option. With over 300 homes, you will enjoy big tar roads with covered drainage, modern electrification with solar street lights, gated entrance with security.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the time and effort you've put into this. Everyone that has had this lecture would realize how much work you've put into this despite the short notice. I can't believe you were only told you were going to deliver this lecture last night, and yet you've done an excellent, excellent job. Can we have a round of applause? You have said a lot of important things, but I would just like to restate a few things that you've mentioned in your lecture. And this goes to the National Assembly members. I think Mahdi has reminded us all what Solo went out for. Electoral reforms. What Solo went out for, the Public Order Act, is what Baba Usainu and his men were sentenced to jail for, and still we have these laws. I think I have an excuse now that I am a former National Assembly member. So we have 2 former VPs and a former National Assembly member as well. And I would just like to tell my fellow colleagues, we have to make sure the Public Order Act and the electoral reforms, the Public Order Act is repealed, and we have electoral reforms before the end of this 3-year transition. I'm giving you the task as members of the National Assembly to fulfill Solo's dream and what he went out for and what he died for us to gain our liberty. Thank you very much. I would like to recognize the presence of the members of the GDC party. I was informed that they are present. Thank you very much for accepting the invitation and coming here. Now I would like to call, we are coming to the end. of the memorial lecture. It has been a long day for all of us today. I would like to call upon Almami Fanding Tal, the UDP spokesperson, to come and give the vote of thanks. But before he comes up, I know Almami cannot thank himself, so I would like to thank him for the hard work he has put into making sure this day happens. He's very passionate about this memorial lecture, trust me, and he has worked so hard to make sure that this day happens. Thank you, Almami.
Thank you, Honorable Yakumba Jaite. For the UDP, you are still an honorable member of the United Democratic Party. On a day like this, it's very easy for all of us to forget the size of the sacrifice of people like Ousainou Darboe. And it's very difficult to talk rationally and sensibly about the issues of our time. But if your task is to just thank people, it becomes relatively easy. I want to first and foremost thank the owners and managers of this hotel. At very last minute, they gave us this hotel gratis, and they provided the water gratis. And they said they are doing it also for the memory of Solo Sandeng. So we recognize the gesture and we take it in the best spirit. Mari Jubate is my childhood friend. We have been in the struggle together. So we are never asked, where were you? Everyone knows where Mari Jubate was. He has fought the good fight. And last evening when I called him, I told him, oh, I am in a very stressed out position. If you don't come to the rescue of our party, we will not be able to have a lecture where we will be told the hard truths, because we try to reach across party lines and invite our brothers in the struggle so that we can have a discourse. At the very last minute, for unavoidable circumstances, for reasons beyond our control, the Honorable Sidi Ajata was not available to give this lecture. But it seems as if, like they say in Christianity, God works in mysterious ways. Our lecturer tonight, at the 11th hour, he came through and he has delivered brilliantly. Mari Jubate, thank you very much, comrade. I'm very pleased, I'm very proud that our mother, Aja Fatoumata Jallow Tambajang, our party leader said that is the daughter of a Kanyaleng. We are yet to be treated to that wonderful aspect of our culture, has been able to come and join us this evening. Her service to this country and to the cause of good government is written everywhere. Lastly, I want to thank my party leader, my senior at the bar, a man whose magnificent humility always amazes us. He leads this party by example. He never loses his cool. He never forgets to guide us to look at the big picture. So Alhaji Ousainou Darboe, we pray for you, we honor you, we recognize your leadership and your sacrifice. My brothers in Helal, Bakari Jame, unfailingly is available. He helped us with this banner. My other brothers, Bakari Kante, all of them have contributed to making this lecture wonderful and to make it so successful. It is the desire of the party leader that the young generation of leaders in the party take charge of activities like this. That is why we try to stay back. Yakuma was telling me, oh, you should go ahead. I said, well, you know, most of the time people say that, you know, you like to talk. I don't like to talk. I talk only because my party leader asked me to talk. So I'm very grateful for your presence, for your patience. Thank you for coming. We hope next year we will be in a bigger hall. One of my comrades was telling me a lot of people wanted to come, and we are grateful for the time, for the attention, and for the engagement. As a party, we continue to believe that this country's best days are still ahead. We are going to get to that promised land. We are going to deliver this country to the highest level of economic and political development. Thank you very much for coming.
Dreaming of owning a property in a prime location with great proximity and fantastic neighborhood? EJ Investments Sandeng Seaview Estate is the best choice you have been waiting for. Our Sandeng Seaview Estate is approximately 15 minutes drive away from the busy hub of Brusubi roundabout and into the heart of nature, where you can have a peaceful and relaxed lifestyle with your family. You can buy a finished 4-bedroom story with 5-year flexible payment plan or a service plot with 2-year payment plan option. With over 300 homes, you will enjoy big tar roads with covered drainage, modern electrification with solar street lights, gated entrance with security post, and a breath-catching experience of our beautiful sea view and lake view. You can own a home today at our Sandeng Seaview Estate. Call us today on 446-4838 or 325-9220. Visit our website on ejinvestments.net. EJ Investments, first in property.